Hi, this video that I'm now doing is to do with learning new things, which is the ultimate goal, I suppose, of growth mindset, is that we do learn new things and we make progress and achieve things because we are learning those new skills. But learning new things can be a pretty kind of scary place, or a place that might make you a bit anxious. It's when you're out of your comfort zone and you're doing something that you don't necessarily know how to do, and that can bring negative feelings with it. I've often spoken to children about how they feel when they're learning new things, and they will give me words such as anxious, frustrated, some might say excited, which is really, really good, and we can have those positive feelings, especially when we've learned how to cope with the feelings that can come with new learning. But it can be a bit of a scary place to be. And I think at the moment, because we don't know a lot about COVID-19 and the experts themselves are learning this as we go along, it can be a bit of a frightening place for us at times. But we have to appreciate and accept that there are times in life when we're not going to know everything straight away, and we have to learn to be okay with that and put some coping mechanisms in. So I think growth mindset in itself is a way of living that helps you bit by bit as you start to practice it more and more, and notice those times when you're growth and those times when you're fixed. It's one of those things that mentally helps me, because I know that progress can only be made if we kind of go through all of the aspects of the growth mindset, of which learning new things is part of it, and that you're not going to learn everything straight away. So we are learning COVID-19. We are, I would say, probably learning to trust our politicians and our leaders and our experts, because we know that they don't know where this is all going, and they are trying to unpick the data and what's happening in other countries as we're going along to kind of make the best decisions that they can. And I think we've also, having been through a time during Brexit, a lot of us, doesn't matter what your standpoint is on Brexit, a lot of us probably did start to lose faith in our political system. So we've kind of had to learn to find that trust again very, very fast, because this is a pandemic that is happening, super quickly. I've also been thinking about the fact that at the beginning of 2020, one of my kind of mantras, if you like, that was sitting in my head, that I kind of have to try and live my life by, because it's still something that I kind of have demons with and fight battles with. And that is to strive for progress, not perfection, which I'm sure a lot of people out there will kind of, it will ring bells with them as well, that we can be a little bit perfectionist at times. And I think probably the teaching profession is one of those professions where we want to get things right straight away, but you can't. You're working in a dynamic environment in schools, and it's all going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect straight away, and that is the message that we want to tell the kids in their learning as well. So I thought it was pretty apt that was my mantra for the beginning of this year, and I'm trying to apply that idea of striving for progress, not perfection, to what is going on at the moment, because it's not going to be perfect first time. We are going to have to go through messy times before it's going to get better, but hopefully we will come back stronger because of that. So we need to accept the journey. We're learning about ourselves as a species. We're learning about ourselves as global citizens. We're learning about ourselves as different countries and how we all interact together and how we work together. And we're also learning about ourselves as individuals. So a lot of what I have to say during this video is about individual experiences that are happening to me at the moment, but I'm sure that you can apply your own experiences to this idea of learning new things. And some of it will be a little bit wider than that. So as a country, what are we learning that's new? And as a world, what are we learning that's new? So for me personally, I would say one of the things that I've been learning is about building my patience. I have a 3-year-old at home, and while it's absolutely lovely spending so much time with her, and there's a lot of learning that's going on with her, and I can notice a change in the time that we've spent together since this lockdown. Just in that time, I can see massive changes that are happening within her. So that part of it is lovely, but we are also having to learn to spend a lot of time with each other that we're not necessarily used to doing. I work part-time in school, so she's often in nursery, and she's obviously not seeing her little play buddies in nursery. And I'm trying to take on, the things like messy play that we don't necessarily do as much of at home because she does it at nursery. I'm trying to be building things with her. I'm obviously thinking as a teacher, and I'm thinking, what experiences can I give her that are going to educate? But being on that, front line and doing all the other things that I would have done as a parent around that kind of nursery experience, doing everything around that as well, I found hugely sort of encompassing. It's taking every ounce of my energy, and it doesn't give me a lot of time for me during the day. So it's kind of the evenings that I get when I'm absolutely exhausted that I get time for me. So I'm having to learn a lot of patience, that this is how it is, and I've just got to kind of find ways of getting myself through that, and trying to kind of work with my other half so that we've both got mental health going on. We're doing the fitness, that carrying that on, because that's important, and keeping healthy. He's managing to do the working from home that he needs to do. And so I would say a massive thing that I'm learning about is my patience thresholds and how to manage those. I think it's important that we take time for ourselves, and part of that I've been trying to think about mindfulness, which I know a lot of people have talked about. Mindfulness is something I actually find quite difficult personally, because I have so many thoughts and ideas constantly buzzing through my head, and with family life going on, it's not always easy to take those moments to just be with yourself. But it is important at the moment. I think we've all had that kind of thrust into our faces that we've got the time to be able to be a little bit more mindful. And actually, one of the things that I've done recently that I've never done before is my friend's brother-in-law actually is a sound therapist, and he runs sound baths, which I've seen him advertise on social media before, and I've been really, really interested in what this involves. And ordinarily, I wouldn't have been able to attend one of his sessions because he lives too far away from me. But because of what was been going on, and like a lot of people, these coaches and educators and course leaders in certain things have had to find other ways of communicating with people. And he actually ran one of his sound baths online. So I joined up for it. And that was one of my moments to be mindful. And I realised how challenging it can be, having had such a busy day with the little one, to actually just come into a room and lie down and just focus on you. So learning to be still and to appreciate what we have. And actually now is probably a really good time to try and start getting into those kinds of practices. In education, we are learning new ways to connect with our pupils. So we're trying to give them learning, and it's finding new ways around that. Parents are having to homeschool. I would say that I'm kind of in that boat with the nursery thing, but not to the same level as maybe some slightly older children, or even children that are in secondary and worrying about exams and what's going to happen there. But I think I've seen so much on social media, as I'm sure you have, about parents and how they're coping. And I even saw something online about Ofsted, and that parents needed to be warned that Ofsted was coming in, and that they'd be expected to do this and have this going and this going and this going. And whilst they had this going, they were also going to be checked for this and that and the other. So I think we're all starting to get a sense of different areas of life that perhaps we didn't think, it's been thrust upon us. We didn't think we were going to find ourselves in this situation. But I think from the majority of things that I've seen and heard, people are embracing it. And I think in terms of the whole homeschooling, you kind of got to take it just as a bit of a everyday, what does the situation hold every day, because we're all learning to live with each other in close proximity every day, and that brings with it huge challenges. If we can get some learning done along the way, that's fantastic. My daughter, for instance, it keeps singing the ABC song, which I'd never heard before, and we seem to have got that going, and she's getting pretty good at jigsaws and how to play a game, that social interaction. So I think all of this is just new learning, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. So we shouldn't beat ourselves up if they're not getting through their timetable every single day, because I think there is plenty that they will be learning at the moment, and just kind of that social, not social because we're not in close contact, but like that global appreciation, and even missing the small things in life like that social contact. I'm sure that will have an impact on children on what they appreciate afterwards. So we mustn't beat ourselves too much and see it as too difficult or too much of a bad thing, because I think there will be things that they are taking from this. One of the teachers in our school, she knows my passion for growth mindset, and she had set herself the challenge that in this time that she was at home, she doesn't have kids by the way, she was going to learn how to do a headstand. And she sent me a video the other day of, she got lots of little snippets of her learning how to do this headstand, and like her progress, she's kind of reeled them all together so that you could see her progress. So she's not there yet, so that's another very useful word to have in your mindset vocabulary, is that you might not be there yet, but where can you, or what can you do to get yourselves through this learning curve? Where is the next step? What are you going to do? What strategy are you going to try next? So she's on that learning journey, and it's something that in schools, you know, there's been a lot of mindset, you know, when we're trying to get it across to kids, that if teachers are actually setting their own challenges and sharing it with children, it's important for them to see where we are in our growth mindsets, and that we're not robots that just know all of this stuff. We are constantly learning new skills and putting ourselves in positions where we don't know things, but it's how you work through them and what strategies you find to work around things. So this is a prime time for that sort of thing to be happening. And as parents as well, I think it's important that kids see us struggle, as long as they see us finding solutions, that we're not just negative about the fact that we can't do something. What are we going to try next to help us to get there? Because it's those kinds of behaviours we need them to be seeing, so that we're modelling something that we hope to see from them. It's our value system that we're putting across to them. So the other thing that has happened recently that I thought was really pertinent to this was my brother actually works for a company called FutureLearn, and they are an online platform that offers university courses, degrees, learning basically, for people to take part in online rather than going into universities or colleges. So it's something that you can do at home. And he said to me that they'd seen a huge rapid increase of people registering and signing themselves up to do courses to learn something new. And he even said that they had a Covid-19 course running, which the last time I spoke to him, so that's probably changed by now, they had 150,000 people sign up in a very short span of time to do that course. So not only are we learning loads of new things, some of which are very directly related to getting us through this pandemic, and some that are kind of things that we want to learn for ourselves, and musical instruments I heard talked about on the radio the other day of things that we want to learn personally. But people are also embracing learning about the science behind this thing. And it's actually quite interesting when you're looking at these graphs and you hear the experts talking about how viruses work. You know, I'm sure there are probably children, young children, that are watching, and maybe we have some future scientists that will go into those kinds of areas on the strength of having seen, you know, what's out there in terms of this sort of learning. So I think the universal desire to learn, that drive, I haven't seen for a long time, and maybe it's just because we're more focused on these kinds of things at the moment, or maybe I'm particularly focused on those kinds of things at the moment. But yeah, learning is really being embraced in so many different ways at the moment. And I couldn't do this video presentation without thinking about the people in organisations that are learning new things, such as how to make ventilators. So Dyson, for example, were learning how to make ventilators rather than vacuum cleaners. There are companies that I've seen, like I saw on the local news, about companies or one-man bands, people, sometimes it's not just small businesses, but making PPE equipment, because the hospitals have said, or have, some places I think are worse than others, have said that they are short of PPE equipment. So people are trying to do their bit, and in learning to trying to do their bit, they are also learning new skills along the way. And I've heard about designer clothes outlets swapping what they normally do, so getting rid of the designer and actually making scrubs to go into hospitals for uniforms for the healthcare staff to work in. So I will have only scratched the surface with how much learning we are doing at the moment, and you personally, like I said at the beginning, you will have been learning new skills, even if you're not totally sure that you have. I'm sure if you dig deep that you will have been learning new skills, and that is the essence of progress, and that is the essence of having a growth mindset.